So have you ever been slapped by God? Well, this actually happened to me. Not metaphorically, I mean like body slammed by the divine. I know, that sounds completely insane, but hear me out for a second. See, I was in a pretty dark place at the time. I was homeless, I was sleeping in the back of a gym, dealing with depression, the whole 9 yards. And then out of nowhere, this overwhelming presence just showed up. It wasn't just some warm, fuzzy feeling or a voice in my head. It's more like someone who was just bigger than reality walked into the room and was like, all right, that's enough, get up. And I'm not kidding, it changed me overnight. My friends literally started asking me, dude, what happened to you? You're like a different person. Look, I get it. If I walked up to you on the street and said, hey, God slapped me in the face, you'd probably call 911 and get me some help. But here's the thing that got me thinking. Millions, if not billions of people throughout time and around the world have claimed to have an experience with God. That's not just a few random breakdowns. That's actually data, right? Now, does that prove God exists to you? Probably not, but it's convincing for those who go through it. And if even one of those encounters is the real deal, well, that changes everything. So that personal experience, well, it opened a door. But what I found when I looked outside that door, that's what we're really here to talk about. Picture this, you walk into the woods, you look around for maybe a minute. You don't see any deer, so you turn around and you walk back out and say, well, I guess deer don't exist. That would be ridiculous, right? But that's honestly what atheism feels like to me. We got a massive universe with billions of galaxies, dimensions we can't even wrap our heads around, and we've explored maybe 0.0001% of it. And then we're like, yep, definitely no God here. Now I know what you're thinking. Atheism isn't claiming that God doesn't exist, it's just the lack of belief in a God. Okay, but is it though? Because according to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, atheism actually means the proposition that God does not exist. So you can't just sit on the fence all day with atheism. But fine, let's play that game. Let's just say you lack the belief in God. Okay, cool. Why do you lack that belief? Well, I haven't seen enough evidence. Really? Would you say the same thing about aliens? Would you say you don't believe in aliens because NASA hasn't personally called you? Or do you think, well, there's billions of planets out there, so aliens probably do exist? What about abiogenesis? You know, life coming from non-life? Do you believe in that? Because if you do, show me the lab where they actually made that happen. Oh yeah, that's right. There isn't one. But it's still the best explanation we got to go with considering the data, right? So here's what I've noticed. Every argument for atheism is actually just an argument against a specific type of God. But I haven't seen any actual arguments for atheism. It's just the assumption that for some reason atheism is the default position. But you're not the neutral baseline here. You got your own belief system with its own assumptions. And if your worldview doesn't offer good arguments and mine does, maybe that's worth exploring. So, why is there something rather than nothing? Why does anything exist at all? Atoms, galaxies, consciousness, my cat. None of it had to exist. We can imagine a universe with nothing, no space, no time, no matter, or at least conceive of it. So the real question is reality made of things that could not have existed? Or is there something that must exist no matter what? That's the heart of the contingency argument. A contingent thing is something that doesn't exist by necessity, like your phone or you or the whole universe. Necessary thing has to exist. It can't not exist. So here's how the argument builds. Something exists, but if everything was contingent, there'd be no ultimate explanation. And that doesn't sit right. We expect explanations, always. That's the principle of sufficient reason. So not everything can be contingent, which means there must be something that's necessary. A foundation. You don't walk outside, see a dent in your car, and say, well, probably nothing did that. You assume a cause, you go looking. And maybe you say, okay, but what if there's just an infinite chain of explanations? Well, that doesn't solve it. An eternal forest still needs a reason for that forest to exist at all. You need an explanation for the totality of contingent things. This whole chain of reality points back to something that doesn't depend on anything else. Something necessary that's absolutely independent. And the question is, could that be God? Let's dig a little deeper. Quick plug. If you want more conversations, well, I've got a Patreon. That's where I drop some exclusive content, replays of my live streams, and a daily Bible study. And right now we're going through the Gospel of John. If you're into that or you just want to support my channel, link is down below. But without further ado, back to the video. The universe doesn't just exist. It exists in a very specific way, fine-tuned down to absurdly precise values, perfectly calibrated to allow life. So imagine that this mixer here is the universe. Every knob here controls a fundamental constant of physics. This right here is the gravitational constant. Turn it up a hair, stars burn out too fast. Turn it down, no stars at all. This one right here is the strong nuclear force. Slightly higher, no hydrogen, no water. Slightly lower, no carbon, no chemistry, no you. This right here is the cosmological constant, the energy of empty space, tuned into 1 part in 10 to the power of 120. That's like tossing a dart across the universe and hitting a single atom. And there are dozens of these. The electron charge, proton mass, expansion rate, all exactly where it needs to be. You change any one of them just a slight amount and everything starts to collapse in on itself. We have no universe as we know it. If you think that's luck, that's like walking into a studio, seeing a perfect mix and assuming the knobs just happen to land that way. Contingency tells us that something must exist. Fine-tuning tells us that it must be precise. Put those together, you don't get randomness, you get design. And now that we've seen what this necessary mind must look like, let's ask, how did it reveal itself? And that brings us to Jesus. So back in part 2, I said this. Sometimes the best explanation is the one that has the most explanatory power, just like with abiogenesis. People don't demand certainty, they demand coherence. They want a framework that fits the evidence. Now we're going to apply that principle to the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. If I could show you the best explanation for what we see in the Gospels is that Jesus actually rose from the dead, well then you got 2 options. You can either engage with it and try to refute the data with a stronger model, or you could just say, God not real though. Let's start with the sources. The reliability of the New Testament. Quick disclaimer, this isn't the New Testament is reliable, so therefore Jesus rose. This is the New Testament is reliable, so we actually know what the eyewitnesses claimed. Now we can evaluate the claim on historical grounds like any other event. First of all, the Gospels weren't anonymous. Every early manuscript that we have that should contain the author's names has the author's names. No mystery copies, no PR spins. And the writings, it fits the authors. Matthew talks money, John knows the land, Luke drops medical terms, and Mark sounds just like Peter. Luke literally opens with, many have undertaken. I investigated everything carefully from the beginning. And in Acts he switches to we. Luke was there recording the eyewitnesses. And scholars agree that the same author that wrote Luke is the same author that wrote Acts. The tone, the vocabulary match Greco-Roman historians. Guys like Demosthenes, and I know I didn't say that right. Luke isn't writing mythology, he's writing history. Classical historian Colin Hemmer found 84 confirmed historical details in Acts. Not theology, not symbolism, just raw accuracy. Even the names match archaeological records of 1st century Palestine. Different Jewish communities had different naming patterns, and the New Testament nails these naming patterns, unlike Gospels that we know are forgeries like the Gospel of Judas. The Gospel of Judas misses the names, gets the geography wrong, and gets the tone wrong. It reads like a fanfic from 150 years later, because it is. So no, this doesn't prove the resurrection, but it does prove this. We're working with real voices. Eyewitness level claims from people who believed what they saw. And they claim that they saw him get beaten. They saw him get crucified. They saw him get killed and get buried. And then 3 days later, they say that they saw him again. And they didn't say it quietly. They either were willing or they did die for that claim. We're not dealing with legends or handed down whispers. We're dealing with public, early, consistent claims from people who had everything to lose and nothing to gain. All right, so obviously this isn't the deepest dive that you could go into these arguments. I didn't give you every single counterpoint or every single historical document or every footnote in a philosophy textbook. We'd be here for 6 hours and my camera would catch fire. So here's the deal. If you got objections or questions, or you just think I'm totally wrong, drop it in the comments. And I actually want to see your best stuff because we're going to take the most interesting ones and we're going to break them down in a future video. And if you want something a little bit more chaotic, go watch this video where I tested out 5 so-called Islamic miracles. It's right here on the screen, so just click it before YouTube sends you off to another cat video, I guess. Speaking of cats, mine just made a bunch of noise beside me. Why are you still here? Go. We're done. See you later. Goodbye.